Long ago, in a time when a soft taco was 79 cents, and running Morrowind on your PC could make your computer explode, the film Spider-Man was released. Based on the comic book Spider-Man, it was a project that spent decades trying to get off the ground. In the 70s, Roger Corman tried to make a Spider-Man film, and failed. In the 80s, it was the Go-Go Boys. But then, Laura Liskin and Avi Avad managed to actually make the fucking movie. It was directed by Sam Raimi, who had previously worked on films such as The Quick and the Dead, Army of Darkness, Who Gives a Shit, and Evil Dead 2. After becoming the first movie to make $100 million in the first weekend and making $800 million worldwide, Sony decided to make another movie, and it was even more critically acclaimed than the other one. And then they made a third one. And people were a bit on the movie, but the film made more money than Micronesia's GDP, so they decided to make a fourth one. And it was cancelled. And here's why. Sam and his brother Ivan Raimi, along with screenwriter Alvin Sargent, they wrote a treatment for the film, with the main theme being that Spider-Man was a flawed hero who could be bad at some points, and that villains could have good intentions. Sam Raimi's original choice for the main villain was Vulture, who would be played by Ben Kingsley, whose sidekick would be the Sandman, played by Thomas Jane. But later on, this was just changed to the Sandman. With them changing his character for the comic books, it was just a guy who happened to accidentally step into a particle accelerator, transforming him into a sand monster, who then decides to rob banks, instead adding depth to his character. Later on, producer Avi Avad wanted Sam Raimi to use the character Venom, due to the character's popularity. Now, Sam Raimi, really loving Spider-Man and the source material, did not give a shit about Venom. Sam Raimi thought that Venom was not an interesting character and didn't even fit the theme of the movie, because the film being about finding humanity in villains would be really weird if one of the villains was literally just a flesh-eating alien who just wanted to eat people. There is also already two villains in the film. Why add a third one? Because Avi told him so. After being forced to put Venom in the movie, Laura Ziskin wanted Gwen Stacy in the film, making it even more cluttered. This led to the film being a complete clusterfuck. Screenwriter Alvin Sargent even thought about making it 2 films, but he ended up not doing it due to him not finding a good way to add a climax for the first film of the 2-parter. After production wrapped up in July 2006, the film was released on May 4th, 2007. Financially, the movie was a big success, making nearly $900 million, and became the highest grossing film that year domestically. But there was a detail many critics and audiences noticed about the film. It was a fucking mess. Critics and audiences pointed out that the film had way too many villains and like 15 plot lines. And this was also not the last time a Spider-Man movie was a clusterfuck. Critically, the movie had mixed reviews. So why were they planning on making a sequel? Well, 2 reasons. The franchise still had enough to keep on going. Spider-Man 3 nearly made $900 million at the box office worldwide. It was also making a shitload of money from toys and video games, so the franchise clearly had juice left in it. Also, many of the cast and crew were ready to return. Sam Raimi especially wanted to return. In recent years, Sam Raimi has been very honest about how he feels about Spider-Man 3, and that he probably hates it more than anybody else on the fucking planet.
Each and every one of those Spider-Man movies were pretty damn challenging. Dragged me to hell. I was on familiar ground, like you mentioned. It's a simple horror film. There wasn't a lot of pressure. I love playing in horror, but working in that big budget arena with so much at stake, with much beloved characters that Stan Lee created, and people really hold him so dear to them that you don't want to mess up. And I messed up plenty with the third Spider-Man. So people, hated me for years.
He wanted to make sure that Spider-Man 4 was the best film in the franchise. Sam Raimi deeply cared about the Spider-Man IP, and more than that, he cared about audiences. He's literally said in interviews that his goal is just to entertain. What I love about Sam Raimi so much is that he's like the least pretentious filmmaker ever. I honestly wish more filmmakers were like that. Just making films entertain and not making these fucking deep Baz Luhrmann porn. Trouble started when Sony set a release date for May 2011. This was done before the script was finished. By the way, the film was announced in March of 2009, which means they had to do pre-production, production, and post-production all on a 26-month timeline. While this was happening, Sony also wanted Sam Raimi to make a 5th and 6th film, all before Spider-Man 4 even started. They hired screenwriters to brainstorm ideas for these films. Another thing Sony wanted to do was to make an R-rated Venom movie, starring Topher Grace. The first screenplay was written by a guy named Jacob Estes. In this script, according to Reddit.com, began Death Valley with Eddie Brock literally reforming out of garbage. He would then go to San Francisco, where he would do things like fight the KKK, Photoshop a picture of Spider-Man to make his bread bulge look smaller, what the fuck, and get with a stripper named Honey. It would end with him fighting Carnage, who was rumored to be played by Jim Carrey, but this isn't confirmed. Unsurprisingly, the film went through many rewrites. Also, Sony had cold feet over Topher Grace's stardom power. While this all was happening, the actual Spider-Man 4 was entering pre-production. The story of the film allegedly was that it was going to be about Peter Parker at the height of his career of being Spider-Man. I assume you probably already know how the film began. You've probably seen posts on Instagram of storyboards with Bruce Campbell in it. Basically, it would be revealed that Bruce Campbell was Mysterio all along, with all of his roles being the same character. But the only scene we would see of him was just a quick cameo of him being arrested. Part of the plot would also be about Peter and MJ's relationship, with Mary Jane building her acting career and Peter preparing to propose to her. Again, apparently later on, while development was happening, they wanted the subplot between MJ and Peter to be less of a big deal and focus more on the villains. The main villain would be Vulture, played by John Malkovich, who was described as a professional thief and assassin who would be hired by high-end criminals and wealthy clients, being less sympathetic than previous villains, like Norman Osborn and Dr. Otto Octavius. He was described as very intelligent and dangerous, and would rely on experience rather than brute force. Anne Hathaway would be in the movie, who would be playing Black Cat, but according to some outlets, she would not be playing the Black Cat, instead playing the Vultress. Whatever that is. But according to Sam Raimi, she was always Black Cat, and those were just rumors, so who knows. Since the film was cancelled in pre-production, this is pretty much all we know. And let's be honest, that this is probably all there is. The reason why it was cancelled in the first place is very simple. Because of the 26-month window Sam Raimi had, he just didn't think he could do it. The film kept on being rewritten, and each time Sam Raimi was not satisfied. Sam Raimi just simply believed he just couldn't make a good movie in the amount of time he had. And plus, Sony was talking about rebooting the franchise around this time. Apparently, even before the film was cancelled, Sony told him that without the franchise, they would just simply reboot it and cancel everything. And that's what he did. On January 11th, 2010, Sony announced that the film was cancelled and that they would be simply rebooting it. Along with that, ideas for Spider-Man 5 and 6 were scrapped, along with the R-rated Venom film, but that later sprung into the 2018 one. And then they made the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and pretty much did the exact same thing that destroyed the previous franchise, with Spider-Man 2 literally having like 10 villains and like 50 subplots, then being rebooted literally only like 2 years later. And honestly, congratulations to the Marvel Cinematic Universe one for actually surviving this long, because now we're actually getting a Spider-Man 4, which is something very impressive done by Sony by actually make the franchise last as long as it did. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.